Justice and Correctional Services Minister Ronald Lamola has outlined key reforms initiated by the state to address corruption. Lamola was addressing the South African and international investors at the RMB Morgan Stanley Big Five Investor Conference. For more on the outcome, let's go to eNCA reporter Heidi Giokos, who joins us now from our Cape Town studios. Heidi, what did the minister have to say exactly to investors about the fact that South Africa has been warned about the possibility of us making it to this grey list?
Yes, exactly. So I think the big concern here, Masego, is that South Africa does not have much time to prove to this financial task force that we should not be added to the grey list. Now, everybody's saying, well, what is the grey list? Why does this even matter to us? But basically, South Africa has been highlighted as a country where there is money laundering, mismanagement of funds, and possible terrorism, not actually dealing with issues of corruption. So, Minister of Justice and Correctional Services Minister Ronald Lamola today trying to appease investors at this Big Five investor conference that all is being done to sort this out. Now, a decision will only be made next year, February, but government has until the end of October to basically show that Cabinet is adopting draft bills and regulatory frameworks to deal with this massive issue. So the minister just trying to encourage and ease investors to say, we understand that there is a problem and we're trying to do as much as possible. The minister speaking about big issues such as the Steinhoff heist that happened a couple of years ago, how that has also been a contributing factor to this financial task force, looking at South Africans saying, but what are you actually doing about this? But also when it comes to the lack of prosecutions in big business deals, when it comes to state-owned entities as well. So let's perhaps listen to the minister's words when it comes to what is being done about this and how they're basically scrambling to try and sort this out.
Our current economic environment is complicated by several issues which the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services is able placed to respond to. The most recent issue is the potential grey listing of South Africa, which will have dire consequences for our country. Chief among the consequences is the risk of reducing investor confidence and the negative impact on the financial well-being of South Africans. The high level of compliance that will be expected from most of you sitting here. Although our economy is reaping the benefits of commodities upturn, the effect of the upturn are yet to manifest themselves structurally. As such, one is concerned that the grey listing by the Financial Action Task Force will certainly deepen, if not enhance, our well-documented structural inequalities. This will affect the cost of borrowing and of raising capital for our country.
And what are the repercussions, Heidi, if government is unable to convince this task team by the end of October that we don't belong in that grey list?
Yes, so I'm going to speak about the timeframes in just a short while, but I want to speak about the repercussions of being placed on a grey list. This is going to be a huge dent to South Africa's reputation, and we know that President Cyril Ramaphosa has been at the forefront of bringing in that foreign investment. We know he has investment conferences trying to persuade people to come and invest in South Africa and do business with us. But if you are placed on the grey list because you are seen as a red flag of a country, because you are not dealing with money laundering issues, possible terrorism, and massive corruption issues, no investor is going to want to touch South Africa or even consider it. Separate to the issue of load shedding and how our country is not in order when it comes to issues of constant electricity supply, but also dealing with our rail infrastructure issues, how that has also become a big issue. This has mainly got to do with money laundering, terrorism, and corruption issues. What's also going to be a massive repercussion issue is the fact that local businesses that have international partners are going to have to go through rigorous processes such as further due diligence, and it's also going to be a lot more costlier for government to be able to do business with international partners, but also local businesses having international business partners. So there are ripple effects to all of this and serious consequences should South Africa be placed on the grey list. Now, the timelines moving forward forward. South Africa has until the end of October to show that they are adhering to the recommendations by this financial task force, that they are adhering to this. By December, government has to provide a full comprehensive report as to what they are going to do and what they have done so far. Then a decision will be made by this task force in February next year as to whether or not South Africa should be placed on the grey list or not. So government has a lot of work ahead of itself to prove to this task force that we should not be on the grey list, and they are adhering to the recommendations, but also they are changing regulatory frameworks and policies to deal with money laundering, corruption and possible terrorism.
Heidi, I'm interested to know if you are aware or if you know what these recommendations from this task force are that we have to show we're adhering to by October. That's just, 6 weeks that government has to show that they're doing this. And by December, I'm sure the minister spoke about things such as the Gupta family and the extradition or non-extradition of the Gupta brothers that we're still waiting for in South Africa. For instance, your Shepherd Bushiri, who's still in Malawi or wherever else he is besides here, and all the arrests that they've been making, like your Brian Molefe, etc. Did he say anything about that forming part of what they'll present in December?
Yes, so I think the big question, even from investors today, was what is government actually doing, and the Justice Department, when it comes to extraditions, but also when it comes to prosecutions and arrests. We do know that there's been much criticism from the National Prosecuting Authority towards the National Prosecuting Authority about the lack of intervention, prosecutions and arrests. According to Minister Lamola, he feels as though work is being done and the ball has started rolling in terms of these arrests and prosecutions. I mean, you touch on a very important aspect when it comes to Transnet and the arrests that we saw with one of the individuals being Brian Molefe. Also, he did speak about how they are in constant talks with the UAE when it comes to the extradition of the Gupta brothers. He says it's a very lengthy process, and these recommendations do include prosecutions and further investigations into a number of issues. At the end of the day, it is in government's hands to prove to this task force that they are doing enough, and this is possibly why they have been given this time frame to say you have this amount of time, which is not a lot of time, but you need to show to us that you are prosecuting, you are arresting and you are investigating when it comes to the Gupta brothers, when it comes to Bushiri, and when it comes to other crucial state-owned entities that have been completely hollowed out. And South Africans would say nothing is really being done about this, and there's clear evidence that there has been corruption, and this is why these entities have been hollowed out. So the minister's saying these are possibly some of the issues that they will be looking at and have been looking at, and that's why they've decided to act on. But also taking these matters to cabinet, because a number of policies and regulatory frameworks will have to be re-looked at and amended to go according to the recommendations from this task force.
All right, and there's a difference, Heidi, between arresting people and a successful prosecution and actually seeing people in orange overalls. But thank you for that report. Heidi Giokos speaking to us there live from our Cape Town studios.